My name is Linda Hendrix Hester. This is my legacy. I was born at High Point Regional Hospital on November 3rd, 1939. I lived most of my life in Archdale. I have three brothers, David Edward, Stephen Jerome, and Paul Nicholas Hendrix. And my parents are Mary McSwain Hendrix and Thomas Millard Hendrix. My brothers were normal boys, rambunctious. My oldest brother, David Edward, he stayed with the family on a farm most of the time. He loved the animals. He worked in tobacco and fed the animals. My brother Stephen, when he was 17, he talked my mother into signing for him to go in the Navy. He made a career for it. After he come out, he even worked for the government for years, and he now lives in Greensboro. My youngest brother, Paul Nicholas, he's lived in Kernersville most of his life and worked for auto repair companies, and he's still living. Both my parents are deceased. I can't remember the year my father died. He left our family when I was 8 years old, and the only other time I ever saw him was he come to visit me one time when I was about 12 or 13 and brought me a skirt. I can remember that I sat down out in the front yard and spread the skirt all the way around me. And the next time I heard from him, I was expecting my first child and was very sick. And he called me and told me he was sick and could he come live with me. And I told him no, that he had deserted me when I needed him and I didn't have time for him. And that's the last, I read his obituary in the paper about 6 months later. And that's the only thing I can remember of him. I have one picture of him, and that's all he was a closed subject with my family. My mother and grandparents never talked about him. So I know absolutely nothing about him, what he was like. My mother, she worked in hosiery mills in High Point all her life. From the time I was, she was a good mother. She provided the best she could. From the time I was 9 years old, I went to school, come home, so she could go to work, and I kept the three boys. And then she would come in from work at night, and so I could go to school the next day. And I lived most of my life with my grandparents in their home. They lived at Holden Beach a lot before my grandfather's health. And then they moved to Florida. And my brother David went to Florida with them and lived with them though. And like I said, Stephen went in the Navy. So it left just me and Nikki. So the house in Archdale was basically my home. And so, but I had a good childhood, really. We always had food on the table out of the garden. Of course, a lot of times right after the Depression, some days we had beans and potatoes one day and potatoes and beans the next day. And the Jewel Tea man would come around and bring coffee and stuff like that to us. My grandparents always had that. And I can remember we raised our chickens and we canned a lot of our food. And we had good neighbors. One of my girlfriend's mother, she kind of became my second mother. If I had a problem, all I had to do was go talk to her if Grandmama wasn't around. I can remember Grandmama going out to kill chickens and wringing their necks. And then we'd have to pick the feathers and all off of them. And Granddaddy raised rattlesnakes to make medicine out of. He'd milk them. He would walk around with them around his neck. He'd have the end of their head on a stick, but the actual snake would be around his neck. There were several pictures of him, live rattlesnakes. He had several. He had a shed there that he had cages for them to be in, and I don't remember exactly how many there was there. I was not allowed near that building. I think that's the only time I can ever remember that my granddaddy spanked me was I went there when I wasn't supposed to, and he spanked me. And I do remember him spanking me one time and putting me in my room and told me I couldn't have any supper.
Did he ever get bit?
He did, but I never did. But it never did bother him because he messed with it so much. But we had grapes, beautiful grapevines, and we'd make muscadine jelly and cider and all. So even going to the beach every summer, I'd go the day after school and come back the day before school. So I had a pretty good childhood. But if we had to go to a doctor, we didn't go to a doctor's office. We went to Dr. Buller's house, and he would mix up medicine for us and give us, and usually we was cured in a day or two. And you didn't go to a doctor unless you was cut or something. Cows don't give milk. You work for it. It was fun. We always had fresh peaches and everything. I can remember peaches, putting them in the hot water and then the cold water, and then it just comes off, and call them blanching. And canning green beans, snapping them, and peas and stuff. So that part, in fact, up until I moved, we raised garden down here 1 year, but over at the house in Archdale, I always had a garden over there. But at the beach, we went fishing a lot, and shrimping, and we didn't go shrimping, but we did work, with the shrimp and all. I literally had a job when I was in my early teens. I'd be living at the beach, and the shrimp boats would come in, and they would pour the shrimp out in a trough, and us ladies, meant more boys too, we just flip their heads off and get them ready to go to the restaurants or wherever they was shipping them, Holden Beach. I'd go down the day after school and come back the day before school starts. I'd come back looking like a little Indian girl because I had long black hair. And so I would work in the pavilion cleaning tables in the soda shop or dipping ice cream. And they had to hide me from the health band. I remember one day he come unexpected, and the ones downstairs run upstairs and told him to put me in a closet, that the health man was there. So they put me in a closet for about 30 minutes to hide me. But then after you got, I think, 14 years old, you could get a work permit to where you could work underage. I had to be 12, 13 years old, somewhere along there. Well, you had to. We didn't have any money. I'd save up my money to buy help on school clothes, because at Christmas, we only got an apple and an orange and some hard candy in our stockings and something to wear to school. We got one pair of shoes right before school started, and they had to last a year. So most of the time we went barefooted in the summer. So, and I can remember letters that my mother wrote. In fact, I read one of them not too long ago. She would write my grandmother in Florida when she was down there that she finally had enough money to buy one of the boys a pair of jeans or a pair of shoes. So, I mean, after the Depression, you just didn't have money. And like I said, the top salary I ever made after I got married was $1. But when I was working at Cress's in my teenage years, um, I met women every day after school and all day Saturday and made $11 a week. And that was before they took out taxes. So, and I can remember there was a shoe store there beside Cress's. There was Cress's, a shoe store, and Diana's dress shop. I saw a dress in Diana's that I wanted. I went in and laid it away and paid $1 a week on it. And in the shoe shop, they had a purple pair of high heel shoes, 4-inch heels, purple suede. I fell in love with them. I laid them shoes away until I got them. And boy, did I think I was hot stuff when I finally got them purple high heel shoes to wear to church. Had to learn to walk in them, but I love them shoes. My grandparents had a house on the ocean front with a big old porch on the front and a gazebo that was right on the water. And I used to love to sit out in that gazebo in the sunrise or sunset. And I thought, God, I would love to be able to paint that. He didn't give it to me, but he gave it to my daughter and my granddaughter, or 2 granddaughters. I got Ash's daughter can paint. But anyway, when I went to school that year down there, I had to walk about 2 miles to the ferry, cross the international waterway on the ferry, and wait on the school bus. Then we'd ride 20 miles to school and before we got to school. Our house was where LA Tire is now, and we'd walk, I think, 2 blocks to catch the bus then. And if we missed the bus, we had to walk to Archdale School, which was a good mile or 2. So if you slept late and didn't miss that bus, you still had to go to school. I was just a little salesperson. It was a dime store. But what was interesting, your winos would come in there and buy aftershave lotion and drink it for alcohol. And we had to tried to not sell it to them, but they'd make their rounds and they'd come in smelling just like aftershave lotion. But that's what stuck into my mind there. We had to ride the bus from High Point to home. And I got off the bus about, I guess half a block from my house. And he saw me walking down from the bus stop to the house. And as typical boys, hollered and whistled and flirted, trying to flirt. And I didn't pay any attention to him. And he asked one of his buddies if he knew me. And he said, yes, I go to church with her. And so he showed up at church next Sunday and we started dating. When we were growing up, we were kind of conditioned to, you grow up, you get married, you have a family. That was still what girls were for back then. They didn't really push careers back then like they do now. And that was just what you're supposed to be. And I really wanted to finish school, but he didn't want me to go back that last year, so I didn't. And we went to work, and he wasn't a regular church member, but he did go the whole time till he talked me into getting married. In 1954, I think, Hurricane Hazel come through and took our house completely. In the first sweep, they said. Mr. Holden, that the beach is named after, the original Mr. Holden, he wouldn't leave. Everybody else left, but he wouldn't leave. And the hurricane winds held him against a building, and it just about drove him crazy, to be fact of it, the pressure of it and the sand beating on him. But his watch was exposed, and the crystal of it, you couldn't even see through it where the sand had took the crystal. But he lived through it. My grandparents went back down there after it was over with, and I went with them. And all that was left of our house was the pipes for the water and stuff was all left out there. Well, my husband and I would go down there camping a lot after we got married. We'd go down there every other weekend camping. And they had a beautiful campground. And I'd always go by where our house used to be. And now it's completely gone. I think Ashley and I checked it out a few years ago, and there's nothing there left now. The ocean has taken over. But it's moved the island to the other end. It's still 10 miles long, but it's changed position. For Halloween, it was really interesting. The kids look forward to it. We'd all, wasn't elaborate costumes, but we'd, dress up. The stores would have tables out front, and we could go by and get some candy or whatever they would put out there for us. Most of the time it was just candy. And we would just walk up and down the streets, 2 blocks, and everybody just socialize. And you could buy hot dogs or whatever you wanted to let people have set it up, places like that. And Christmas, we always had a good parade and everything, and decoration, and all the stores would be decorated really pretty. And you'd go up and down on Saturday and walk. We would walk from 2 blocks. That was the thing to do on Saturday. Park your car and walk the 2 blocks up and down one side and down the other, and go to the grocery store. You go to the grocery store once a week. I don't remember.
Oh my goodness.
It's okay if you don't.
I think he just, he kept asking me to marry him. And my mama, I kept telling him no. And my mama says, that boy's not going to quit asking you until you marry him. And she was wanting to get married again. And I did not like the man she was wanting to marry. And he was there every night for supper. Then I had to cook for him. So I think my husband, one night when he said, will you marry me? I just said, okay. And he got my ring. And I know when he went to the jewelry, he went to Gray's Jewelry in Archdale, and to get my engagement ring. And Mr. Grace said, what are you doing, marrying a baby or something? He said, well, I want to raise her like I want her, because my ring size was so small. He had to special order my rings because my fingers were so small. But he told Mr. Gray that he was going to raise me like he wanted me. And so, my husband, well, this was when Elvis was starting. And I did go see Elvis at the Center Theater. We got in for 25 cents and a Coca-Cola cap. And that was one of the best shows I ever saw in my life. Fell in love with Elvis. But anyway, my husband knew I loved Elvis. And he got him some pink pants and shirt. And he'd wear them just about every date. And so the first thing I did after we got married was burn that pair of pants and shirt. They looked good on Elvis, but not him. These friends of ours, they were married, and so he had a 49 Chevrolet, and we decided to go to the mountains on a picnic, and ended up in Washington, D.C. and his brother was living up there at that time, or my husband's brother was. And so he let us stay. He put us up that night and let us tour Washington the next day. And we come back home, and the only way we could get home, we had a credit card to where we put gas in the car. But wouldn't nobody take a credit card for food, so we come home hungry. But Bill Burge and Jan was the couple that went with us, and he lost his job because he didn't show up for work. My husband was a very good mechanic, and his brother would call him a lot and hold the phone at his car, and he said, "What's wrong with my car?" And he said, they told him to try something. He said, "If that don't work, call me back." So he called him back, and he said, "I tell you what, you and Linda come up here and you fix my car, and I'll get you a tour of the White House." So we took off up there, and he fixed his car, and we toured the White House, and I had a pistol in my pocketbook when we toured the White House, but security didn't see it. And my brother-in-law asked me, he said, "Linda, you didn't have that gun in your pocket, did you?" I said, "Yeah, I did," but I said, "They checked it." And he said, "I cannot believe that you got through it and come out of there." And but the bad part about it, we had drove our van up there to go, and where we parked it to go into the White House, somebody broke in our van and stole everything we had in it out of it. So it's a good thing I didn't leave the gun in the van, or we wouldn't have had it. But they say that that's bad up there, that people will watch you park your vehicle and steal stuff out of it. Say my husband was raised on a farm, and he wanted a farm. And so we eventually saved up enough money to buy this place down here. And we moved down here December of 1970. And it come the biggest snow there ever was the weekend we were moving. We got half our stuff in here, and the other half was on the trailer. Couldn't get it, the other half from the other house. We slept on the floor and built a fire in the fireplace till the snow melted enough to get the rest of our stuff down here. Well, after we moved down here, our girls wanted horses and cows. So they each had a horse, and we had 3 cows. And we had built a riding ring for them. And there's the oldest girl's horse had a colt, and I delivered it out or was with the horse when she delivered it out here in the field at 3 o'clock in the morning. And we calves, I've nursed calves, stayed up all night with them. And the ones that did live, they would come up here to the fence every morning for their breakfast, and we had to feed them with big old milk bottles. And they'd line up out here and nurse their bottles before the girls would go to school. They'd catch the bus out here. We had a doctor's buggy that we'd either go horseback riding, or me and David would go in the doctor's buggy, and we'd ride around all in the area around here every Sunday, Saturdays and Sundays. And we'd go to horse shows, and the girls would show their horses, but they wouldn't eat the cows. We raised the cows to have them for food because I raised in a garden, and they wouldn't eat the meat. So that was it. They said they couldn't eat the meat because of their pets. After they got licensed, both of them, the horses disappeared. And then we got a motorhome and started camping. Well, we started out in a tent And we'd go to Holden Beach every other weekend camping. And we'd come up, get home from work, load up, go to the beach, come back Sunday night, go to work Monday morning, and be ready to go back next weekend. And I had 2 small kids. And then as we had a motorcycle, my husband I rode behind him, and we'd ride along, and I'd have to bite a hot dog off of a line or pick up something off of an oil can and things like that. It was a lot of fun at these rallies. And then as we progressed and we finally got a Class A motorhome, Ashley was born, and every time we went somewhere, she had to be in there. And the only time she didn't go, we were going to Pennsylvania, to a car show up there. She didn't go that time. And we were on the Shenandoah Valley. And this guy, you know how they are. We were on the side next to the mountain, and he was on the side that went down. He had reached down to get something out of the floorboard and hit us head on. There we were up on top of that mountain in a wreck. He went under our motorhome, and it didn't congratulate him, but it almost did. We had to wait on somebody else to come up the mountain, and then they had to go back down the mountain to call 911. So they finally brought a helicopter in up there to get him. And I think he lived a week after that. That was one of the most horrible things. In fact, I wouldn't even drive for a whole year after then, because me and that guy had eye-to-eye contact before he hit. And I don't know, your whole life just flashes through. Of course, I wasn't hurt. My husband wasn't hurt because we were up over it, kinda. But I had the refrigerator and freezer stocked full of food. And they told me that if I hadn't had my seatbelt on, that I'd have went through the windshield. And all that food had come through. Some of it even went through the windshield out on the road. The impact was so bad. But that was the most horrible thing I think I've ever experienced. And I was so thankful she wasn't with us that time. But we did take her and go to Florida, and went down one side and up the other, and toured Florida. We were gone a long time, and we got to see one of the spaceships go off. We were on top of Cape Canaveral. We were on top of the motorhome, and they told us the earth would shake, but we didn't believe it. About that time, all the cars' alarms went off, and it just shook. We took in, I think, every attraction there was from all the way down. And even in St. Augustine, we saw Bonnie and Clyde's car. We saw the car that Jane Mansfield was killed in. And so we did a lot with the Ashley and Dusty, especially her. She says that's why she travels so much now. Ashley was always a good child. In fact, her mother wanted to put her in daycare, and she wouldn't go. She went one time, and she told the lady, my grandma don't do this. My grandma don't do it like that. And so they told her to take her back to her grandma.
They kicked me out of daycare.
Yeah, they did. Dusty was a little bit different, but he was just a boy. The only thing that about before we got that far, we had just bought our first bedroom suite when we had moved in over that farmhouse. And I had got my Christmas bonus and was fixing to go buy Christmas and grocery store. And my husband had a garage out to the side that he worked on cars. And he was out there working, and my sister-in-law, his sister was there. And we were out there talking. And I turned around and I said, where's all that smoke coming from? and our house was on fire. I ran in and grabbed a few things, and my husband, his other sister lived on the other side. It was a duplex, and he literally picked up a tank of fuel oil and moved it to keep it from catching on fire. But we lost everything in that fire, and we hadn't even had that bedroom set a year. But I just went in and grabbed her, and they said it was faulty wiring. And the worst thing I hated losing was I had my grandmother's treadle sewing machine, and I loved that. That's how I learned. I made our clothes on it. I made mine and my girls' clothes on that treadle sewing machine, and I hated losing that worse than anything. But it was upstairs, so there was no way I could get it. I cannot imagine not having a child. They're a blessing to you, and no matter how they turn out, they're still a blessing to you. They're a gift from God. You have your trials. When my girls were dating, I couldn't go to sleep till they were home. I always made them have, it started out a dime, and then it went up to a quarter in their pocket, to where no matter if they were on a date and they needed to get away from the boy, you used to have payphones everywhere. I'm sure you knew that. But anyway, go to a payphone and call me, no matter what time of day or night. And so that to me, and even when my youngest daughter started driving, she was a little wild, and she had several wrecks, and it wasn't anything for her to call her daddy to come get her. And I never will forget, she used to go drag Maine. That was the thing, to drag Maine. They didn't buy bumpers by one, they bought by tens to repair. They'd hook it to the clothesline out of here and straighten them out. And we painted that thing several times. And her daddy asked her one night, said, "Please don't go to Main Street tonight." Said, "The paint's not even dry yet." "Oh yeah, it is, Granddaddy. Daddy, I'll be careful." She come in, the paint had just rolled up, or somebody had hit her in the back. But you have some sleepless nights with children. But one thing I wanted to tell you, I forgot, he did antique cars for people. And when Elvis died, we had a 55 Chevrolet convertible that we had restored. And I was making sewing the seat covers for it when Elvis died out here in the garage. So that's how I remember when Elvis died. We went through a period of time that we were separated for a while, but I was raised that you do the good with the bad, and when you make your vows, you until death do you part. And so that's the way it was. He was a good provider. He did work. He was a good father to the girls. He taught us, he required us to do a lot with him. At the time, I didn't think I should have to do, because it was kind of man's work. But we built this business to have these mobile home parts, and now I'm glad I know it, because I know when a repairman comes here, they can't take advantage of me. When we were building this place, my youngest daughter and I actually helped him build it. She drove the tractors. We put in water lines. We helped set them up, clean them up, repair them. We used to furnish washers and dryers in them. We'd bring them into the garage. We'd help him repair them, go get parts and everything. So there's a lot that it was rough, but it's good that I knew it now in my old age, because I'm still running it, or it's running me. I don't know what you say. Life that I grew up in was the best there ever was. We didn't have to lock our doors. Everybody was pretty well honest. There was a few that wasn't. But we knew what work was. We were creative. We didn't sit with a phone in our hand all the time. We got out and we were with nature. We knew what animals were. We knew how to work with our hands. We knew how to have a garden. Boys knew how to go hunting with their daddy, come home and clean the meat. Everything was just so much different then than it is now. I'm just glad I lived when I did. To me, I feel like I lived at the best time there was. We had our generation come out of the war and depression, and we created stuff. When we went to school, we learned the basic ABCs, math, multiplications. Kids nowadays can't make change, and it's a shame. I mean, sometimes when I go to a store or something, the kids, I can tell them what they owe me more quicker than they can punch it into the machine. I think they miss a lot this day and time. And I know they say that we're going to be controlled by AI eventually. And that is a shame. Look what my generation has brought into this world. We started off when I was little. The telephone was on the wall. You cranked it up. You had an operator hook you up where you had to go. And now at 85, you punch it in, you can talk to the world. And that's the difference in what's happened in 85 years. We went from horse and buggies. My husband's parents didn't have electricity or running water till in the 50s. Or no, it was almost 60s. So since 1960 till now, we've come from horse and buggies to cars that drive themselves. So who's going to do this searching? Whose minds are going to invent this stuff? If all you do is you punch it in and it tells you what happened 30 years ago. And if they're rewriting the history books like they say they are, how are they going to know who Christopher Columbus was? That he discovered America. Or how are they going to know anything else? They may look back and think we were from the Stone Ages. Why should I do that when this machine will do it for me? And it is, it's really a lost art because used to, when they made furniture, it was all handmade. Now it's not. Of course, you still have a few that does. But I don't know. It's hard for me to predict. I have survived from being a single parent child to the prestige of it, that it didn't really matter. That it didn't matter that I didn't have a father, that I still survived. That no matter what life throwed at me, God has given me the strength to survive and the will to survive, that I didn't let it beat me, that I did not become a drug addict or an alcoholic or anything like that. I was told my daddy was an alcoholic, so I could have very well been went that way. And I just feel like that trusting, putting your faith in Jesus is the main thing, and keeping the faith. Well, I love my girls to death. They don't think so, but I do. I love them, and I've tried to be fair to both of them. what I felt was best for them. And I hope someday that they'll realize that that was my whole reason. And no matter what's happened over the years, I still love them both. There's no difference between what I feel for them. I'd lay down my life for either one of them. And it's my grandchildren. I'm very proud of all my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. And I'm glad I've got the relationship I have with all of them. And I hope they pass that on to their children. I love quilting. When the epidemic hit, the COVID-19, Ashley and I made thousands of masks for people. Her nursing friends kept her orders coming in, and we just set up business here. The company I was working for at that time called me up and said for them to be able to stay open, they had to have masks on all their employees. And they asked me would I design one. So I went over there and we designed a mask for them. Well, the company literally cut the fabric and gave it to me. And I made masks for all their employees and kept them in masks. And doctors, hospitals, High Point University, sheriff's departments, and all were calling and getting in touch with me. And I sit here for days, 8 hours a day, just making masks. And Ashley was good enough to come down and help me. And we made one for President Trump and sent him, and then he sent us a letter back. I even made the Artsdale Trending News, I think, on it.
Yeah, we have to.
And one of my granddaughters, she was going to Mount Calvary Baptist school over here, and they put me in their annual about that I had made all these masks. But I love my quilting. I've made pillowcase dresses to go to Honduras and Haiti's, and the shorts and things to go, missionaries to take off. And Dr. Bryson at our church is going to Honduras 1st of February. And I did a bunch of blankets and baby stuff for him to take to there. So I do a lot of that. And I get great pleasure out of it. One night, I woke up about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It come to my mind, get up, get dressed. You've got a mission. I said, God, if you want me to keep making these dresses and shorts to go to these disaster areas, I've got to have fabric. It keeps coming in. I went to the beauty shop one day. A lady heard me talking about making the blankets and dresses. The next day, my beautician called me. She said, Linda, come over here. I've got 3 big old bags of fabric for you. And it hasn't stopped. I got oodles and gobs out there in the garage that's waiting on me to sew. That's why I'm still here, I reckon, to sew for her disaster areas. And every once in a while, I get a quilt for myself. If you follow the 10 Commandments, you can make it anywhere. Sometimes it's hard, but if you do, you can make it. My name is Linda Hendrix Hester, and this is my legacy.